Hello everyone, this is the great Lord and Master Osiron, the Eternal, for what's going to be a continuation of the video I made about 5 months ago. This is going to show how the cube interacts with the single digit code, and it's going to expand upon the idea that they are the same. Like the reason why the single digits of 0 through 9 are what they are is because it's a reflection of the cube matrix that we live in. Okay? And the core cube structure is right here of 0 through 9. The 0 and 9 points are in the center of the cube, and the 1 through 8 take the corners of the cube. And this Yggdrasil structure is just a continuation of that. It starts with 10, it goes to 19, and then it would continue to infinity, 20 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, but the core is always the same. It never changes. Okay? And there's other aspects to the cube too. I've been dealing with the corners, but this Yggdrasil structure now is showing all three aspects. You have the corners with the circles, but now you have in the triangle shapes the faces. And that's laid out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, following the same pattern that all these structures follow out, with the female aspect first, then the masculine. And then the connecting lines are shown by these small letters on the lines, small numbers on the lines here. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, and you jump to the middle, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then the bottom plane of 9, 10, 11, and 12. And all of these counterbalance themselves. Okay, and like for instance, like the faces, like you got the 1 and 6 becomes 7, 2 and 5 becomes 7, and 3 and 4 becomes 7. And of the lines, you got 12 and 1 become 13, then 4. 11 and 2 become 13, then 4. All the oppositions become 13 and 4. Okay. And this is what's going on. And this shows up someplace else. This actually shows up in the code from the Osiron Tarot Spiral. If you recall, the Osiron Tarot Spiral produces a code, but that code really doesn't have anything to do with the tarot per se. It's just a product or a phenomenon of the numbers themselves. And that code is this. You see it here. You got the numbers going 1 through 9, and the code after reduction is right next to it. You got 136, 163, and then 199. And that is the code. And how that works is you have the 1 and 3, and the 6 is cancelled out by the 3, and then you have the 1 and the 6, and the 3 is cancelled out by the 6, and that turns it off. And then what you're left with is 1, 3 becomes 4, 1 and 6 becomes 7, and then when you add 4 and 7, that becomes 11, 2 1s, and then 2. Okay, and then the 2 combines with the 3 to become 5, which is the center of the true tree, and the 2 plus 6 is 8, which is the Yesod point on the true tree. That's significant. This is showing how the true tree of life works. And that's that. And this of course shows you the cube. You got 1 and 3 for the 13 element, which becomes 4, and then the 1 and 6 is the oppositions for the 7. So this is showing the cube. This code is telling you that the single digit is a cube. Now, but there is another aspect to it, because to cancel out these numbers, I needed to kind of play around a little bit. But I'm only using the numbers, like just a natural evolution of numbers, to do that. If I was to use those other numbers within the code itself, it changes things a little bit. It just shows the same thing, but from a different perspective. Okay, so now you're adding 1 and 1, that becomes 2. You're adding 2 and 3, that becomes 5. 4 and 1 becomes 5. 5 and 6 becomes 11 and 2. And 7 plus 1 is 8. 8 and 9 becomes 8 when reduced. And then when you add the 2 and the 5, that becomes 7. The 5 and the 2 becomes 7. And the 8 and 8 becomes 16, and then 7. Okay, so that leaves you 7, 7, 7. And anyone in the occult world is going to know what that is. Crowley has a book called 777. Any type of triple number in the occult world is going to mean something, whether it's valid or not, But it's going to. So 777 is that. But now when you add 777, that becomes 21, and the cube itself is made of 22 segments. You got the 9 corners, 6 faces, I'm sorry, the corners don't count on that. You got the 6 faces, the 12 lines, and the 3 aspects of height, width, and depth. And the only thing missing in this case would be the center point in the middle. But when you leave out that center point in the middle, that is 21, and that reduces to a 3. So all of this is reduced. You know, this is coming back to 3 quite a bit, and you'll see more of this in a minute. But now, remember, this is only a 2D representation of a 3D cube, okay? And because of that, in the 2D form, you can, like, in these face triangle things, you can't tell what plane of the cube this triangle belongs to, because it could either be the upper one or the side one. So it takes 2 triangles to isolate the exact plane that you're dealing with. So for instance, you got the 1 here, you can't tell if it's up or down, but when you add 1 more to it, you can. So for instance, this 1 and 2 tells you that this is the top, the top plane, and the 1 and 3 is the lower rear plane. So now it takes 2 to isolate it, and this is important, this theme of duality. Everything is duality. There is no such thing as singularity that any conscious mind can be aware of. Okay, so now we're seeing that here. 2 triangles become a diamond, okay, in all of these. And up here with the red, that's the face you can see, and the blue one is the aspect you can't see, because any cube, any 3-dimensional object, but a cube especially, you can only see 3 of the faces at any given time. You can't see the other 2. So this is sort of showing a black sun mythology in a way, because what you're seeing is the face of the cube. This is what we see, but behind that is 3 more planes that you can't see. But there's another hidden aspect that I'll show you right now. See, all of these cubes, when you combine 2 of these triangles, it forms this one diamond, and the numbers that are in these slots are these numbers here. So for instance, you got the 1 and 2 becomes 3, the 3 and 5 becomes 8, the 6 and the 4 become 10, then 1, and then it shifts for the ones and back. 3 and 1 become 4, 5 and 6 become 11 and 2, and then 2 and 4 become 6 for here. And this is what that's showing here. So now, in this configuration though, there's numbers that aren't being used. It goes through every one except for the 5 and the 7 aren't used in that joined combined configuration. And now you're going to notice something really amazing about this. The 1, 3, and 8 combine to form 12. The 2, 4, and 6 combine to form 12. And the 5 and the 7, the numbers not being used, also combine to form 12. So it's actually showing a trinary aspect that those guys talk about with vortex math. And so what you're seeing is the face you can see becomes 12. This is what we see. The rear of that you can't see, but it's there. It's physical, it's there. And then the other 12 is represented by the 5 and the 7 that aren't there. So it's showing you that there's a mysterious aspect that is outside of all of this. It's sort of what's happening by that. And then 12 times 3 becomes 36. So we're seeing that again. But now each of these planes has an opposition too. So the 3 and the 2 is an opposition, and that becomes 5. The 8 and the 6 are an opposition, and that becomes 5. And then the 4 and the 1 are oppositions, and that becomes 5. And 5, 5, and 5 becomes 15, 2 female numbers again, and then that becomes 6. And it's also showing a 4-5 configuration, because now it's taking 4 numbers to do that, because this 3 and 2 is really the 1, 2, 5, and 6. So that's 4 numbers that are joined to make that 5. So we're seeing an aspect to the pentagram too. You have the 4 elements, and then that mysterious etheric aspect of spirit is showing up with 5. So all of this is like interrelated and integrated. Pretty amazing. Now we're going to get to something about 0 and 9, and how that is actually the same aspect as Counterspace. Last night I actually watched a video that's amazing by Ken Wheeler. Excellent channel from that guy. I watch all his videos about that, because he has 2 topics. You know, camera. He has a camera topic, then he has a topic where he talks about like this stuff. Not this, but the aspect of gravity. That's how you'll see. But anyway, okay, now, so the 0, here's a cube. The cube is made up of the 8 digits, And then the center point of this cube is the 0 and 9 space, okay? And that space, I'm postulating, is the same exact thing as counterspace. Now you're probably saying, what the fuck is counterspace? Counterspace is this aspect, like if you take a magnet, okay, and this came from that video last night I watched, it was really good. But if you take a magnet, you have a north pole and a south pole, and in the center of that is the plane of inertia, and that's the center of the magnet. But that's not a part of the physical properties of the magnet. That is just a aspect of the field perturbations taking place with the aspect of what we call magnetism. Okay, because if you break that magnet in half, you will have two magnets, and you won't have one north aspect and one south aspect. It'll shift to become two magnets. Just like if you take two magnets and join them together, the north and south pole, when they get together, that will become one magnet again. So the plane of inertia in the middle is counterspace. It's the same thing as counterspace. So, what that means is, you can see this in a cube. Like right now, the center point of the cube is the 0, 9 space in the perfect center of this cube. It didn't start out there, okay? So what happens is you take the 1, now the 1, the center of mass and the center of gravity are the same point in the center of the object. But now when you add two objects together, it changes. So now the center of the center position between the 1 and the 2 is in between the 1 and the 2, and they'll move together to reconcile that. But they're not moving towards each other, they're both moving towards counterspace, according to Ken. Okay, so now when you add the 3 to this, it shifts the whole dynamic. Now the center point moves somewhere between the middle of all these. When you add the 4, it moves again to the center of this. When you add the 5, it moves to the center of that. Same thing when you add the 6, it moves again to the center of all of them. When you add the 7, same thing, it moves again. And then when you add the 8, the final 8, it equalizes to form its exact center point. Okay, so the center point isn't really there, it's a result of the workings of all these other aspects together. And that's that, and that's the 0, 9, the 0 and 9 point. So, so that's how that goes, and that's why that's like that. So my idea is that the 0, 9 is counterspace. It's not real. That's why the 0 and the 9 have the properties that they have, because it's representing that counterspace aspect. And that's pretty important in all of this. And one more thing I want to get to real quick. You see the 0, 1 and the 0, 2. This is important. 0 and 1 and 1 and 2 are actually the same exact thing. The only difference is 0 and 1 is not conscious, and the 1 and 2 is conscious. Because I have a saying that I made up that I really like, and that's there is no such thing as 1, there's only 0 and 2. Because consciousness by default is a duality state, is a binary state. So when you have these people telling you to go to oneness, get rid of your ego and all that stuff, that's fucking bullshit. Because the core of all of that is consciousness, and that is a binary phenomenon. So there's no getting around that. So there is no such thing as that. So what they say when they go to 1, the only thing they could mean is they go to 0, but 0 is oblivion and it's not conscious. So you basically, it's an absence of consciousness in that state of 0. So that's what that is. So the 0 and 1, the 1 and 2 is 0 and 1, just with consciousness. And the 0 and 1 is unknowable to that point because that's the way it goes. So 0 becomes 1, and what was 1 becomes alive with consciousness, and that becomes a 2. And that's how that works. Like that. Yeah, that should be it. There's one more thing too, real quickly. This section was left over from the other video, but even this has a 369 aspect too. So you got the singular cube here, and then its next fractal of evolution is 8 for the 1 and 8. But 6 times 1 for the faces is 6, and then for the faces 8 times 6 is 48, which is another 1-2 ratio. And that becomes 3. So you're seeing this repeatable 639, 639 aspect to go along with the 189 aspect. Just watch other videos, you'll see what that means. And getting back to those ratios again for a minute, I forgot to add this. All of these things are showing a 1-2 ratio. You got the 1-2 here, and 1, 2 here, 1, 2 here. But now what you're seeing with all these numbers, you got 1, 3, 8, 2, 4, 6. Only 2 of these numbers are feminine, and 4 of them are masculine. And the 2 numbers that aren't seen are feminine as well. But that's leaving you another 1-2 ratio. So we're seeing that all over the place. Even the cube itself is a 1-2 ratio with its 6 faces and then 12 connecting lines. So 6, 12, 6, 3. So we're seeing this all over the place. It's really, really powerful, really important. And what this is showing is just showing that this is a cube matrix based on duality, basically. This is a cube matrix, so it's not just a cube matrix. I mean, the cube matrix isn't some evil, there's people who say that this is the evil slave matrix and it's bad and it's all that's fucking horseshit. All it is, all a cube is a perfect representation of 3 dimensions, height, width, and depth, in perfect balance and perfect harmony. That's all it is. And this is what this is showing. That's why the single digit code is perfect, because the cube is perfect. That's why, because that's what it represents. So that should be it. Thank you and namaste.